again. We're so happy to see you. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're logging in from. And today we are really excited to have guests from various colleges and also alum, which is wonderful. That's exciting for us to have not just an admissions perspective, but from student perspective. So thank you to you all for joining us. Give me 1 second while I pull up the PowerPoint. All right. Oh, and I see all the alum are here as well. Yay. All right. Okay, so a couple housekeeping things before we get started here. As always, please feel free at any time to be asking us questions in the Q&A box, and we will be consolidating those questions and make sure that they're all getting covered at the end, but we'd love to see them earlier. So as soon as you have it, go ahead and ask. Same goes for those of you on YouTube. If you want to chat there as well, we'll see those as well. And so without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and have our guests introduce themselves briefly.
Hi, good morning, or good evening, or good afternoon. Good morning from Claremont, McKenna, though. My name is Connor Fritz. I'm Associate Dean of Admission at CMC. And Amia, do you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, hi, I'm Amia Narula, and I'm a CMC alum, class of 19, and I am currently finishing up my master's at the London School of Economics.
Hello, I'm Kaylani Lofna. I'm here with Davidson College, and I'm the Director of International Admission and Financial Aid, and I'm joined by alumna Preksha.
Hey everyone, I'm Preksha Agarwal. I graduated Davidson College class of 2018, and I currently work as a data engineer with a software company in New York.
Hi everyone, my name is Niyal Rele. I grew up in India and attended Middlebury myself, and now I work in the admissions office as one of the two people who run international admissions. Thank you for joining us today. We have Hashar with us, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself after as well.
Hello, everyone. It's good to be here. My name is Hashar Nassar, and I graduated from Middlebury in February of 2017 with a major in political science and minor in religion. And I'm currently working in Dubai.
All right, I gotta unmute myself. Here we go. So just really quickly on Claremont McKenna College, we're located in Southern California, just outside of Los Angeles. I think the best way really to gain an understanding of CMC is through kind of our two mottos, one official, one unofficial. So our official motto is civilization prospers with commerce. And I believe this is a really good, gives you a good understanding, because CMC really does try to educate our students to know that when they've graduated, to affect change in the world, you need to understand how global economics work, how economies work to change things, and then how public policy also plays a role in that. And so all of our students gain a really good understanding of global and US economics, as well as public policy issues. The way we do this is through our classes. We have 31 different majors. We are a liberal arts college, so students are required to take classes across different disciplines. But within our classroom, we really encourage debate and discussion to learn. Our faculty members are hired because they're bringing in real world experiences. They're bringing in case studies into the classroom for students to really learn from. And then it follows on outside of the classroom. Here at CMC, we have 11 research institutes and centers. They're all focused on public policy issues and all provide our students opportunities beginning their first year to be paid research assistant interns. And then beyond Claremont McKenna College, we really place an emphasis on learning for the sake of doing, which is that second motto that you have at CMC. And so we really prepare our students to go out into the world through their 4 years and take on internships. One number I think that really sets CMC apart is that over 87% of our students do internships every single summer. We leverage all of our relationships, so from our parents to our alumni, to companies and organizations that come to campus, and we have over 300 of them, to hire our students for internships and full-time jobs after they graduated. We also put a lot of money, put a lot of our resources into this. So through our sponsored internship and experience program, last year we gave over $1.7 million to our students who are doing either unpaid or underpaid internships. Also at CMC, we're a member of the Claremont colleges. So you actually have 4 top liberal arts colleges literally right next door to you. We're all within one square mile of each other. And so students can take classes, they can major on the other campuses here in Claremont, as well as being a Claremont McKenna College student. So that's a little bit about CMC, and I'm going to pass it over to Kaylani now on the East Coast.
Great, thanks, Connor. So Davidson is located in the state of North Carolina. We are fortunate to be about 25 minutes by car from Charlotte, North Carolina. So we have access to a major city. Charlotte is the 2nd largest banking city in the United States after New York, but you really find yourself in this local community of Davidson. Davidson has 2,000 students. We're the liberal arts and science college, and everything we do and everything all 3 of our schools do is for our undergraduate students. As you see, our mission is to assist students in developing humane instincts and disciplined and creative minds for lives of leadership and service. And we think of leadership broadly. We think of community leaders. We think of leaders in education, leaders in the medical field, leaders in thinking about solutions from a very different perspective. And how we do that is we have a very interdisciplinary curriculum where you will declare a major at the end of your sophomore year, but during your 4 years, you're taking a wide variety of different courses. You're taking courses in sports data analytics, where you look at math and computer science and sports. You're looking at economic access to healthcare. When you think of our current global pandemic, who has access to healthcare, and you look at it from the lens of an economist and how that affects the country, is a really important feature to be looking at as we're thinking about more and more people needing access to healthcare. We look at politics of waste. This is political science coming together and environmental science. We have a course on Trump, race, and US media. This is through our communication studies programs. We have other courses on, medical rehab and disability, and you're looking at disability resources, but also as disability is focused on country to country, what kind of support there is, and then also thinking about a variety of different lenses. This is what we do at Davidson. So when you graduate, you don't have one sole focus that was your major, and you can only address global pressing issues from one lens. We want our graduates to be able to look at it from a variety of different perspectives, come up with different solutions, answers to questions, or ways of navigating different types of questions. So your academic setup will be very interdisciplinary, and you'll take courses that surprise you. Preksha is a perfect alumna to be able to think about how she really took advantage of the liberal arts. She was economics and dance. She did research in Greece. She got various grants to study in the US and outside of the US. And she did an internship in Chicago before she landed her job, which is now in New York City. You'll get to hear from Preksha later, but really the idea of Davidson is this close-knit collaborative community where you're going to be supported during your 4 years, an environment of interdisciplinary learning that is going to surprise you in the different courses that you take, and then the support when you're thinking about the practical experiences outside of the classroom. We have career treks through our Center for Career Development that takes students to Wall Street in New York City for those interested in investment banking. We have one that goes to Silicon Valley for technology and startups. We have Wells Fargo because they have a headquarters in Charlotte. They come up to Davidson and they do training the street where you're thinking about Wall Street and thinking about going into being a financial investor. And we also partner with a lot of different organizations and companies within Davidson and within Charlotte. One class that we have that's become quite popular is a mix of psychology and economics, and that's with professionals in Ernst & Young in the Charlotte office. So really taking advantage of our location and making sure you have everything you need to be successful for your 4 years and beyond. Now I'll pass it up to Vermont, Neal at Middlebury.
Thank you. And the best way really to start with talking about Middlebury is talking about our mission as well. So I'll read it out for you. Through a commitment to immersive learning, we prepare students to lead engaged, consequential, and creative lives to contribute to their communities and address the world's most challenging problems. And you'll see this as a theme appear in the next couple of minutes as I talk about the college. So we're about 2,500 students. So when it comes to small liberal arts colleges, we are a little bit on the bigger end of a small liberal arts college, but still 2,500 students in the landscape of US higher education is very much considered to be a small community. And we're located in the state of Vermont, known for its natural beauty. It's fall season, but also it's very full winter. And Vermont is also famous for things like Ben & Jerry's ice cream. You might have heard of Bernie Sanders as well. It is, in terms of our location, a much more of a small town location compared certainly to, looking at Connor in LA. So that itself is a little bit of a different experience. But as you see from the mission, students who choose Middlebury are those that are really invested in building strong community and also setting their roots down in this location. To understand Middlebury is to also understand Vermont, and that part of your experience is really prominent. At the same time, while we are located in a smaller town, there's about 10,000 people who live in the town of Middlebury. We're still close to big population centers. We're about 45 minutes south of Burlington, which is the biggest city in the state of Vermont. And we're not too far away from Montreal up in Canada, which is just across the border from us, as well as Boston, which is not too far. So geographically, if you want to get a sense of where we are, that's sort of where we are. We are really fortunate to have this inspiring natural environment, but also as a function of the size, our students really bond closely and quickly with one another, as well as folks in the grander community. Your experience is largely going to be one on campus, and day in and day out, experiencing this 4 years with people that you see every day is a special experience on all our campuses. So that rooting is really, really wonderful and kind of rare in the landscape of American higher education. So something that I'm sure our alums will talk about as well. Things that the college is known for, particularly, we are a campus that, while we are locally grounded so strongly, we have this incredible international presence. So as you can see from the slide, there's 37 schools abroad across 16 countries. And that's just one element of how we focus on internationalism within our curriculum. And this is true no matter whether you're a social scientist or a humanities or a natural scientist. Those students are taking advantage of experiences and internships across the country and the world. And that's something we really try to emphasize throughout our curriculum. We're also known for our language programs, and that dovetails really neatly in. We're thinking about building global citizens with the skills essential to tackle the world's most challenging problems. So that language piece isn't necessarily something that you have to major in, but something that you can study alongside for your full 4 years. I, for example, started Chinese as a first-year student at Middlebury, had no experience with it whatsoever, but I studied abroad in China. I took a full 4 years of Chinese. I did a language program at the college over the summer. I did an internship that was funded by the college to go to China and work with an environmental nonprofit. All these different experiences that had me get to a point where I was very highly proficient in the language in such a short span of time. And another small piece that Middlebury is often known for is our focus in sustainability. We really appreciate our natural surroundings, and that's something that we want to maintain for perpetuity. So we are a college that is carbon neutral. We were one of the first colleges to set up that goal and meet that goal of carbon neutrality. And now we've set a new goal of being entirely on renewable sources of energy by the year 2028, and also divesting our entire endowment from the fossil fuel industry. So we're always trying to set that bar higher for ourselves and hold ourselves to a high standard as humans, but also as an institution. And those are values that are deeply embedded in our alumni community as well, as I'm sure you'll hear from Asher. So back to Gloria, is it? Connor, you might be muted.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I am muted. So just a little bit about liberal arts and kind of what we do and how we do it and how we prepare students for life after college. We want our students to dive into all different areas, all different disciplines. The belief is that this world is not just singular. The jobs that you will do, the issues that you will take on are not just singular issues. And so we want to give you this well-rounded education so that you can make those connections. It also allows our students to really look around and see, what is the major for me? We find that all of our students, what they major in doesn't dictate what they do for the rest of their lives. And so finding a major where you're going to be really successful is a wonderful thing and a wonderful part about the liberal arts. And we allow that in your first couple of years to explore. And as I said before, your major does not dictate what you're going to do for the rest of your life. And so building these really important skills for all different types of jobs, for all different types of experiences throughout your lifetime is going to be really, really important, especially as we move into this globalized community and this community where technology plays such an important role.
And to continue on, as we all mentioned, it's a focus on the undergraduates, right? We have some good questions coming in on chat. What makes a US education unique? That's part of it, is where we focus solely on the undergraduate education, that first degree that you get after your high school experience. And that our undergraduates are involved in research. I know each one of our alumni in this panel can share of either personal experiences or experience of their friends who've done research at their schools, whether it's independent research in the US, on campus, or overseas, but just getting the opportunity for research, but also the mentorship from a faculty member as they're doing research. And the internships and jobs. You heard Connor say, we recruit everyone from Davidson alumni and Claremont McKenna alumni and Middlebury alumni to family and friends. Because of the size of our place, while you might think it's a contradiction to think smaller places have a greater alumni base, it's actually the truth that it's a tighter alumni base. And our alumni will do anything to help our current students or those who are graduating. Even in this current pandemic, each one of us could share experiences of how our alumni opened their homes to students who needed a place, offered airline miles or hotel points to help students transition. That is a tight-knit community, and that's what you get from a liberal arts and tight-knit community experience. It's also residential, so that's why the opportunity for relationships and creating those close-knit environments that Neal talked about so much is because you live on campus for all 4 years. That's also very unique to a US liberal arts experience where we provide housing for all 4 years, and that your experience outside of the classroom is 50% of your life, right? 50% is in class, but there's so much more that happens outside the classroom because of the residential piece. Clubs, organizations, you name it, right? You define your definition of fun or development, and you're going to find it at our schools.
And I also want to talk about outcomes. What's next after a liberal arts education? How are we preparing you to be successful in today's job economy? And that's a question that you will start asking as soon as you step foot on our campuses. And there's a ton of resources that are set up there to support you answer those questions for yourselves and sort of chart that way through your 4 years and beyond, with this alumni base that we're talking about that is also so invested in supporting our current students. When we think about the liberal arts and how we apply that to our professional and personal lives, we often think about it in terms of this toolkit that you're building over your 4 years as a student. Now, if you were in a program that was tracked, that was narrower in focus perhaps, then maybe you're not building that breadth of skills as well as the depth that you need to be successful in an economy that's constantly reinventing and changing as technology changes, as our future, as things like this happen and in a span of a few months entirely shift how work is done across the world. Liberal arts students who had that flexibility built into their curriculum for 4 years, having the choice to dig deep into certain topics that they really care about, but not have that choice made for them, is huge and eye-opening to so many students. We are small colleges, but we have dozens and dozens of different options and programs, way more than most high schools can offer. So when you step foot on our campus and you say, hey, I want to major in X because that's what I really liked in high school, but you haven't had the chance to try out a whole bunch of other things as well, that really were only possible to have taken at the college level. So we encourage those sorts of choices. Spread yourself wide before you make that decision about what you exactly want to major or double major in. It's not unusual on our campuses to have students who do things like, a close friend of mine, for example, is a physics and a classics double major. He also did pre-med, right? So those things happen all the time. It's not unusual. And as you can see from this slide, when you think about what employers are actually looking for, are they looking for sort of a cog in the machine? Maybe sometimes, but really what they're often looking for are creative problem solvers, folks who have incredible communication skills, problem solving skills, folks who work well in a team, are able to work across different disciplines because they've had experience of that, folks who are able to take a lot of initiative, but also have the important practical and technical skills to support success, right? So those elements are really what we're trying to develop no matter what you major in. And that is exactly what our employers are telling us that they're looking for. Also, if you see, the last quote down at the bottom there, that a four-year college degree should prepare students for the next 40 years of work life. And we're doing exactly that. Our mission is to do exactly that. To give you the tools to be a lifelong learner is at the core of what it means to be a liberal arts student.
Okay, so now we're gonna kind of engage our alums. Thank you all of our alums for being here. Just to give you those that are watching kind of an understanding of what exactly the outcomes and what exactly, a liberal arts college or liberal arts education can do for you. So Ami, I'm gonna start with you. How did CMC's program, liberal arts, help you to figure out kind of your career path, where the 4 years were leading you?
Yeah, so I think, Connor, you made a great point earlier when you said, your major does not have to decide what you go on and do. And as an international relations major, I've had kind of like this varying experiences of taking IR classes, but also the liberal arts model allows you to dive into other things, right? So at CMC, I had the opportunity to construct my own classes. So I did an independent study with one of my professors, and it was based on nonfiction writing. So it was literature, it was me and the professor, and just the two of us for the entire semester. I constructed my own syllabus with him, and we were kind of able to create that. And that wasn't directly involved with my major, but was a big part of kind of my liberal arts experience that then gave me those creative problem solving skills that people that are hiring look for. And I just recently went through the recruiting process these last few months whilst I was finishing up my master's with kind of the pandemic going on and everything. And I was able to find a job. And I think one of the big reasons for that was because I had this solid background from CMC and the ability to feel confident in my own skills. And a lot of the questions that they asked me were based on kind of professional experiences or experiences with managers or being in leadership roles. And CMC really gives you the opportunity to do that. So I had 3 jobs while I was on campus my senior year while writing a thesis and doing extracurriculars and all of that stuff. So I think it allowed me to then offer those experiences in those interviews and really put those experiences forward, which may not be the case for people that don't have the opportunity to have those experiences. And I was also fortunate enough to be able to spend a summer working in Spain, all funded by CMC, which was great. And that was kind of like one of those things that I'd always wanted to do and just wouldn't have been able to do if I didn't have this CMC alumni network to help me find that. And then kind of the CMC sponsorship program to help me spend the summer there. So I hope that answers the question.
Absolutely, yeah. And it gets into a little bit about kind of, when you go into those next steps. So Ami, I also should note, I put major in economics on this slideshow here. I'm sorry, Ami, it was international relations. So you just recently graduated with a master's degree from the London School of Economics in International Relations, which is awesome. So when you think about your experience during your master's program, how do you feel like your, what you learned and how you participated at CMC and in the classroom at the liberal arts college, how did that kind of propel you into the master's? And could you compare maybe like people that you were in your master's degree that may have gone to, larger, Oxford or larger universities in the US?
Yeah, I think that was one of the most important things as well. When I went into the master's, I was a little bit intimidated because I was going to be in a larger class environment for the first time. And just kind of jumping right into it, I realized that a lot of what I was studying in the master's, I'd already had preliminary experience with in my classes at CMC, and to like a much more one-on-one basis. So a class that I took at CMC was called Democracy and Politics in Mexico, and it's taught by Professor Roderick Camp, who's America's leading Mexicanist. And when the Mexican ambassador gives speeches, he references Professor Camp and kind of his policy decisions. And I was sitting in his living room with 5 other people eating brownies that his wife made us and discussing these policy issues, right? And that, I think that's really special, and you really only get that at a place like CMC and like a liberal arts college. And I think when you have those experiences, you don't realize it at the time, but when you go into these larger formal environments, kind of like LSE, where you're in this big classroom setting with scholars and academics that you've only read about before, and you start talking to them, that confidence comes through, and I felt really adept to be able to address all of the assignments that I had at LSE and kind of all of the classroom situations, because I'd had those experiences at CMC and felt very comfortable doing so whilst also working part-time. So I think the other thing with liberal arts is you learn really how to manage your time and balance, because like Keilani said, 50% is in the classroom, but there's so much of it outside of the classroom, and kind of whether it's your extracurricular activities or your jobs on campus or the people that you're learning from, a lot of it happens outside. So you learn that like work-life balance as well that everyone kind of strives for.
Mm-hmm. I see Dr. Camp all the time around campus walking his dogs. So it really is a community. So Keilani, I'm going to pass it over to you for your questions.
Great, thanks. Preksha, so think back to when you were in high school, where many of those who are joining us today, many of the participants who are on, are in this position of thinking about the schools they're going to apply to. And how did you decide to apply to a liberal arts college? And thinking also, how did your high school experience or curriculum help you transition to Davidson, transition to a LAC? So any advice or experience you can share with us would be greatly appreciated.
Yeah. So liberal arts wasn't it wasn't an obvious choice for me. I actually finished high school in India and then decided to apply to colleges in India. I did the whole thing. I, took those IIT exams, I did the whole thing. I ended up in a college in New Delhi. I started doing a program in statistics there. And 2 months into the program, I realized it wasn't what I wanted, in the sense that college in India felt very much like an extension of high school, in the sense that I wasn't able to think critically or think outside of what was in the textbook. And I found myself caught in that visual cycle of just attending classes, taking exams, waiting for a grade. And I really didn't want that for my college experience. So that's when I kind of decided I will stick it out. But I started taking my SATs, my AP, like calculus, economics, physics classes, just getting in that groove of like liberal arts and understanding what it is that I really wanted. And that's how I ended up at Davidson. I was interested in economics, but I had a diverse range of interests, from dance to disability studies to religion, and none of that the liberal arts was the best place for it. I wouldn't have had the opportunity to do half of the things that I was able to in terms of travel. I ended up spending a semester in London at the University College of London, taking classes in economics and international politics. I spent a summer in Greece doing research to study how the financial crisis had impacted the arts community in Greece, all funded through Davidson. I did a summer in Maine and New York to study dance as a cultural practice there. And none of that really would have been available to me had it not been for the liberal arts and Davidson's belief in sort of interdisciplinary studies and I want to echo the thought that was communicated earlier of how your major doesn't determine the rest of your professional life or where you end up. I majored in economics, but I currently work as a data engineer. Davidson prepared me with the communication skills, the thinking skills, and just the analytical tools to learn how to code in the matter of a few months, to pick up the skills that someone with a computer science degree had. And I find myself, my colleagues are math majors and computer science majors, and some of them with PhD and master's degrees. And I'm able to have these conversations with them, and I'm able to work in settings with product managers and, people with a lot more degrees than I have, but my liberal arts degree has prepared me to think critically and learn quickly in those environments. And that's what gives me that sense of confidence that Amia talked about. I remember sitting in those classrooms at the University College London with 200 people and thinking about how, that's where I could have ended up had I stayed in that Indian, that big classroom size environment in India. But liberal arts offered me the opportunity to be in a small classroom setting, have those close relationships with professors and with students, and really learn from my community, instead of getting caught up in the weeds of like academic insecurities that you'll often find in larger universities, I think.
Great. Those are fantastic examples of a liberal arts outcome and experience, and just being able to compare and contrast even through your study abroad experience and thinking about the different ways that you were able to navigate your experience at Davidson, but then beyond. And I will say I'll share and toot her horn as you're interested in Davidson, but Preksha was part of Gamut Dance Company, which is our professional dance company at Davidson. And she was definitely a leader among many students at Davidson for dance. So that's just one of the incredible opportunities you have in a liberal arts, is to pursue your academic interest, but also in a different area that it doesn't have to be related to your direct academic area. So Preksha, for a second question, you kind of ended on thinking about, a larger university. So I wanted you to share with us that, your friends who went to a variety of different places. I imagine you have friends who stayed in India, friends who went to different schools in the US or to different countries. Can you just compare your experience at a liberal arts with those friends who went to larger universities?
Yeah, I think the biggest difference between liberal arts and a bigger college was the sense of community. Like I mentioned, there were a lot of great things happening on campus. People were doing really, really cool things at all times, but there wasn't the sense of announcing it to the world in the way that bigger universities do, that I felt really secure in. There also wasn't, students were always ready to work in smaller groups. I always had access to my professors. Office hours were always available. Professors always were down to get a cup of coffee to talk about, a problem that I was trying to solve, or, a research project that I was interested in, or what I wanted to write my next paper about. That's something that was unavailable at a larger college, or, when I talk with my friends about their college experience at a large state school or any bigger university, the concept of 15 people sitting in a room talking about disability and their what disability means to them, or how they approach dance as movement practice, like that's a foreign concept, because their academic careers were kind of driven by, like, very streamlined and focused on landing a particular job, whereas the liberal arts, I think we really focus on becoming holistic individuals, if that's, and focusing, and I think by diversifying our areas of study, by studying not just economics, but also intertwining that with, with English classes and with cultural studies and with religion classes and with, politics and dance and art. There's so much more that I was able to learn and understand how, religion and economics aren't separate fields of studies, but really religion and culture and race really play a huge role in how we look at economics in any part of the world, and how, it determines how politics and politicians run their economies. So these are things that I would have, that part of my brain wouldn't have started thinking, or that's what was missing in my kind of academic experience pre-liberal arts, and that's what the liberal arts allowed me to do. Another thing that I found kind of really comforting was social life at Davidson. So just having, by means of whether it's eating houses or our clubs and my dance group, I was able to find a diverse group of people and friendships that I think will remain lifelong friendships, and that's something that might be harder at a bigger school. One other thing that I think, Kehlani, would be important to mention is how Davidson offers a host family program. So we connect students with a local family in the town of Davidson. They, depending on your relationship with them, they'll be your parents, your friends. They'll come see you at your events. They'll host you for dinners, whatever you need, really. And I was so thankful for that, because there was a point when I was so homesick and missed my family, but I had a family in my town to go see and stay with, and just be in the comfort of a home whenever that happened. So those are small things that you just wouldn't find at a large university, or any big college in India, that I felt really thankful for throughout the 4 years of college.
Great, thank you, Priksha. And I would say the host family thing is a very liberal arts idea, right? Because we are welcoming you into our small community, we want you to be supported. The support systems that are in place for students coming from overseas are very specific to the type of experience you'll have at a liberal arts college. That's support, whether it's through grants, it's through host families, it's through, having a Thanksgiving dinner hosted by the college president, right? It's these special programs that we put in place to make sure our international students feel at home, really, truly on our campuses when they're very far away. So thanks, Priksha. Great examples at Davidson, and then also just liberal arts in general.
Awesome. So Hasha, I have a couple of questions for you. First of all, from one of our audience members, they're kind of confused by the 16.5 as your graduation year. And that's something that's distinctively Middlebury. So glad to have the opportunity to talk about it. Would you like to kick us off with explaining what that is quickly? Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So Middlebury usually graduates 2 classes every year. One class graduates in February and the other in May. And the class that graduates in February, they start the academic year in February. So when students apply to Middlebury, they might choose to take a semester off to go and do something else, or they just might need some time, might need a gap. Or Middlebury might actually admit the students for the Feb class, just because they feel like the student might need more time before coming to Middlebury. For me, I was admitted to start in September. I did start in September, but I ended up taking a semester off for health reasons, and that's why I graduated in February of 2017. Yeah.
So that's the moniker, the 0.5 that gets added in there denotes that those students would graduate in February. It's a fun graduation ceremony. All those students, we have a ski mountain that's owned by the college. It's about 20 minutes away from campus. And in full cap and gown, the students will ski or sled or snowshoe down together. But thanks for that question, audience member. On to the formal questions. One of them is, Hasha, you probably had friends who went to a range of colleges in the US, different styles of colleges and universities. How would you compare your experience at a small liberal arts college to someone who was at a larger university?
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Nihal. I think there are three things that I want to touch on here. The first is when talking to some of my friends who went to larger universities, one thing that stands out to me is the relationships that I was able to develop with professors at Middlebury. A lot of my friends weren't able to speak about those kind of relationships. And just to give the audience members a couple of examples, when I started at Middlebury, I took two classes with a professor in the political science department, and then the summer after my freshman year, I ended up being his research assistant, and I ended up being his research assistant for 5 years. So I kept working with him even after I graduated from Middlebury, because we were, there was a piece that we were working on and it wasn't finished, and our work continued. I decided to visit Middlebury last summer and spent 3 to 4 days with him and his family. Right, so those are the kind of relationships that you're able to build at a small liberal arts college. Yeah, they're relationships that aren't just limited to your time at the college, but you'll continue to keep in touch with these professors even after you leave, and that also goes for staff members. And the second example I would give is that we had the opportunity to invite a professor or a staff member to lunch or dinner at one of the dining halls, and that was a great way to get to know a professor that you're taking a class with, or a staff member that is involved in any of the various departments at school. So the college really gives you different opportunities to build these relationships, and they're relationships that will last even after you graduate. The second thing that I want to touch on is something that Amia also mentioned. It's about having the opportunity to do independent studies. So I ended up doing two independent studies with professors at Middlebury. One was focused on immigrant entrepreneurship in DC, and that independent study came about through a class I took with a geography professor. And I would often go to his office hours, and we would talk a lot about my dad's experience as an immigrant and as a small business owner in the US. And from there, we started talking about how immigrant entrepreneurship looks in urban areas. And from there, I expressed my interest in exploring this topic further in the Washington, DC metropolitan area. And we created a syllabus, and I was able to play around with some census data and do some analysis. And then the second opportunity I had was, again, conversations with a professor about a Jewish convert to Islam who played an instrumental role in the early years of Pakistan, Muhammad Asad. And he was doing, a research project on him. And because of my interest, he said, would you be interested in potentially doing an independent study, and you could, delve deeper into his life. We created a syllabus. I did that for a semester, and then I ended up also being his research assistant. The third thing I want to touch on is that sometimes, these liberal arts schools the small liberal arts schools are like in rural areas or in the middle of nowhere. And that was a big thing for me when I got into Middlebury and when I was choosing between schools. And I remember talking to a Middlebury alum, and I told him, Middlebury is in a rural area in the middle of nowhere. And sometimes I'm concerned that I might not have the opportunities that I would have at a larger university. And he said something to me that I still think about, which is that because it's in a rural area, because it's in the middle of nowhere, you end up shaping your own experience. The community shapes the experience that you will have. And so students who went to larger universities, they would often say, oh, our university does this, our college does this. But at Middlebury, you will often hear that